intro. How you want to start? You want to start? Hello, welcome to Glendale. This is a new podcast. However you want to start. It's your show. I think you should start it off.
I thought I did with the intro.
No, I just wanted to test that.
Okay.
No, we're going to record now. That was just testing. I could hear your voice, make sure we're recording. I don't want to record, and then I press the button and we're in here. We can get all this and ain't on record. Okay.
So we're going straight into the show.
Mm-hmm. Yep, on 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Good evening, everyone. This is Vince Evans, and I'm here hosting the Up From Here podcast, courtesy of the Green Movement Glenville, which I'm so appreciative of. Thanks for Ms. Trotter making this possible for me and making it possible for me to be able to contribute something to my community. First of all, what we want to do is we want to talk about community empowerment through a restorative justice lens. And what that basically means is, how do we uplift our community in a way that's healing? Because when I think of restorative justice, I think of basically healing the hurt that has been caused, healing the trauma, and everybody on both sides of it being able to heal. From the perpetuator all the way to the victim, and vice versa, from the victim to the perpetuator. So a lot of times when we think of restorative justice, we think of jail, incarceration, afterwards, or whatever. We don't think about the little kid who witnessed violence and is still traumatized behind it and has never been to jail, may never go to jail. We don't think about the grandmother who has spent her whole life grocery shopping, working in her garden, and taking care of her family, who has witnessed violence and will probably never go to jail and never have to deal with anybody who is going to jail, but how that has impacted her in some kind of way. So in order to empower our community, the first thing we have to do is address the people within that community, from the old to the young and from the young to the old, all the way up and down. And I'm grateful for this opportunity to be working with Ms. Trotter, whom I met. It was kind of funny how I met her. I met her in the middle of the night when I was doing my job as an outreach worker. So there was a domestic dispute going on in the middle of the night. People were standing around. Nobody was really doing nothing. They was watching it and observing. And I felt it was my duty to intervene, because that could have been my sister, that could have been my brother. And the situation was potentially dangerous. But again, my job was to get out there and try to help people. So that's what I did. I intervened. I ended up exchanging numbers with Ms. Trotter, and the rest is history. Anytime she called, I'm coming. I love what she does for the community. I love what people do for my community in general. And I think it's important because somewhere along the way, we've lost our sense of community. We lost the unity in community. There's no neighbor in neighborhood. It's just hoods now. No more neighbors. You know, when I work with young people, I make them introduce themselves to the people who live next door to them, 5 houses down each direction, because it's to the point now where we don't even know our neighbors. So that's something that's very important to me at this point.
Well, welcome, Vince Evans. Welcome. Let me just say this. I am so appreciative that you decided to do this show. We need to hear the voices of people like you in our community, people out there with boots on the ground that are doing the work. We need to hear those voices, not just the voices of, the naysayers. Oh, it's a terrible community, just move. Oh, nothing good comes out of those communities. Listen, Glenville is a wonderful community. Welcome to Glenville, everyone. We've got one of the most vibrant, one of the most energetic, one of the most historic communities in Cleveland, Ohio. And now we have a voice, the voice of the people. This is the voice of the people. And one of the things that we have to start addressing is crime and violence in our community. Who is supposed to solve this problem, Vincent?
Well, it's a combination. So you have different responses to criminal activity. You have a cop response, which is 911. You have a care response, which is somebody concerned from the community that steps in before law enforcement does. And then you have a co-response, which is when law enforcement is there as well as people from the community, which is part of the job that I've done in the past. When there were scenes where people were shot or sometimes murdered, often shot though, and we used to have to report to every last one of them in the city of Cleveland. So being there with the police doing their job and us doing our job, the police job was to solve the crime. Our job was to try to restore a sense of safety to the community. One example is one time we were in Ward 5, this was in the last 6 months, there was a murder in one of the housing complexes down there, and the children were just standing around, parents were standing around smoking Black and Milds and just paying attention, just watching what was going on as the police walked around the deceased body, of a man who had been murdered. And the kids was just sitting there laughing and playing like everything was normal. So what one of the individuals from my team decided to do was he went over to Family Dollar, grabbed a football, and grabbed those kids and took them away from that. We started playing catch with them, playing football with them. Because part of the problem is that our youth are overexposed. They're overexposed to things they should not be exposed to. And when we start talking about community violence in general, we have to start at home. And it's interesting because I once read a book by Bell Hooks, who was a renowned feminist, a black feminist. But her thing was to become more compassionate and understand something. One thing she said is that the most violent thing that we ever hear as youth, the most violent thing, and it comes from the people that we trust the most of the time. It's usually said by our mothers to us at some point. I brought you into this world and I'll take you out of it. This is my mother saying that she will end my life.
Yes.
Or my father saying that they will end my life. So if a person, imagine what that does to a child. If I know that my own mother could do this to me, what somebody in the street can do, you know?
Right.
What can somebody in the street do to me? So there's an overall sense of panic. We have our society, and I don't want to point out all the ills, but the problem is we cannot correct what we won't confront. That's number one. We gotta be able to confront it in order to correct it. We can't keep pretending like everything is cool, like home life is cool, like school life is cool, like community life is cool when it's not. When people don't feel safe walking up and down their street, they don't feel safe going to certain stores, whether they're young or old, whether they're in the street, even street people who are criminals don't feel safe in the street. What do that say? You know, this Cleveland, this isn't Gotham. Gotham is an imaginary place. Cleveland is a real place. Real places have real people. And one of the things that we want to do, especially with this show, is basically it's about upliftment. So my definition of empowerment is simply involving others in the process of their own upliftment. That's empowerment. So how do we empower our community? We involve them in the process of their own upliftment. We have to start thinking about group politics. We have to start thinking about group economics. We have to start thinking about group activities where we socialize again. Where again, let's put the neighbor back into the neighborhood. Let's put the unity back into the community. So especially in the Glenville area, when I see it, and me and Mr. talked about it before, you know, we look at these abandoned buildings and empty fields and we like, oh, it's kind of depressing. But Cleveland Clinic looked at it and they have a vision, which goes back to one of the things we're talking about with empowerment. It's something that I tell young people constantly. Number one, you must have a plan for yourself. If you don't have a plan for yourself, best believe somebody else will have a plan for you.
Absolutely.
So these people, these developers, they have visions for our cities and our streets. They have visions for us. They have voices for us. They try to legislate things into existence. You cannot legislate violence out of communities. You cannot legislate guns out of communities. If I go into a basement with a young man who's 15, it don't matter how long he has to wait to purchase a gun if he already got 5 of them in his basement. And that's part of the problem. We have to deal with it realistically. Nobody on Capitol Hill can reduce the violence on St. Clair through passing a law. If you want to reduce gun violence, you have to somehow change the narrative as well as change the hearts and minds of the young people and the older people who are perpetuating gun violence. And the reason I say older people is because gun violence can be simply words. For instance, we have this whole Kia boy thing where young guys are stealing Kias. They have a wardrobe, and it's not the Kia boys, it's just young people in general. They have a wardrobe, they wear hoodies, they wear ski masks, even when it's 90 degrees. And you shouldn't die for what you wear, but we know that you can definitely die for what you wear. And right now,
just for your color.
Yeah. You have open carry, you have CCW, you have all these gun laws, and you have stand your ground. So guess what? When this young man who's been portrayed on the media as a criminal, a killer, a thug, and he just stealing a car. He just making a mistake. You know, he making a bad decision. But then you have parents who saying, oh, if I catch him, and these are black mothers who are saying, if I catch him stealing my car, I'm killing him. His mama should have taught him better, as though they had never made these mistakes. And I often tell these parents that when they say this, in the rage, you keep saying something long enough, eventually you'll react in that way.
Oh, it's going to show up.
Yeah.
It's going to show up in your reality.
And you can't kill my child because they made a bad decision.
Right.
You know, that's not fair.
It's property.
It's property. And you know what my argument is? I can go down to any police station and I can steal every car in that police station parking lot and turn myself in 20 minutes. And even if they gave me the maximum penalty of the law, it wouldn't be the death penalty.
Mm-hmm.
So what makes Miss Smith able to kill me about her kid,
Mm-hmm.
or to kill my child about her kid? Let's start talking about that. Let's start trusting each other. Let's start getting insurance, so that if little whoever steal my car, my insurance,
Little
State
Ricky,
Farm gonna make sure I can get it.
man.
I ain't want to
Right.
call it little mook mook. I always call it little mook mook. Little mook
Listen,
mook steal my car.
You're so right.
I'm gonna get insurance, but let's talk about this so we can change the narrative. Our first reaction should not be to harm this child who made a bad decision.
Mm-hmm.
Our first reaction should be like, what do we do to make sure they make better decisions?
Well, we got to relearn some things.
Yeah, and we gotta reteach.
We got to relearn, reteach first. We
Reteach.
got to stop normalizing violence in our community. You know, it's become such a spectacle that whenever there's a fight, people run to it instead of away from it.
Away from
Not knowing who's got a gun, who's got a knife, what the situation is. Everybody runs to that spectacle because they want to be entertained for free. I tell kids that quit entertaining people for free by violence. Seeing people get hurt. That's a big problem in our community.
Yep.
They think it's fun. They think it's boxing. It's Tyson all over again in the street.
And it's our culture. I mean, when you really look at what our culture has become, when we look at our youth, what's raising our youth? The media, social media, a little bit of the media, just a little bit, and music.
Right.
Music.
And who's to blame for that?
Us, them. There are so many systems, systemic racism. There are so many systems in place.
True.
And systems are designed, they do what they're designed to do. So if you have certain systems that's designed to keep a certain people on the bottom so that a certain people can remain on top. In order for the 1% to remain the 1%, the 99% got to stay where they at or be lower. We understand that. This isn't to lift everybody up. It was an old rap song, and it said something to the effects of, if life is a game that money could buy, the rich people would live and the poor would die. And then at the end of the song, everybody missed it. And he said, so I guess we got to make all the poor people rich too. And I think that's what we got to understand. If poor people will perish, then it's our job to make sure that we ain't poor. We got to start that group economics. We got to start generational wealth. And we have to basically shun these alternative pathways to success. That's what I call them. When a guy sells drugs, these are what he believes are alternative paths to success because he doesn't believe school can do it for him. He doesn't believe a job or a trade or a skill can do it for him. So he believes that if he wants these things, then he has to get out here and break the law to get them because that seems easy. It seems like an option.
It is not.
Yep.
It's not a career path.
And some have made it a
Well,
career
not the
path.
career you want to go
But
because there is no heaven for drug dealers. I have not seen one, and I've known quite a few, and none of them have prospered. There's an old saying, an old adage, what you send out, you get back. Mm-hmm. And we got to remember, our parents told us this a long time ago, Vincent. What you do comes back to you. Definitely. There's no free lunch out here. Well, we got to show our children there's more opportunity. I think being poor is a misnomer. We're not poor in this country. We're challenged, but we are not poor. There is people in third worlds that are truly poor and are happier than the richest people over here. So we're not poor. But we keep feeding our children this narrative, you're poor. No, you're not. You're just challenged. Rise up to the challenge. But I'm sorry that you got to compete with corporate America for your child's attention. Right? Forgive me. But somebody else has influence on your child besides you. Yeah. Who? You got to step up to the plate. The parents I gave you life, that's not enough.
No.
I feed you, that's not enough. I send you to school, that's not enough. I'm sorry, you got to do more.
Definitely. And we got to do more.
The streets are raising these children.
So who steps in? Who steps in?
The community used to. We used to have self-help groups. Hey, listen, we can go back to the Panthers. The Panthers started the first breakfast program. Then, here come the government. Hello? And then what?
The shoe program.
Hello? These are all grassroots programs. And as soon as the government eliminates the competition, i.e. the Panthers, then they step in. But Malcolm has said it best. The government ain't our daddy.
Exactly.
We keep looking for a hand. I get tired of them giving us these little handouts. Come get you some free socks. Come come get you some free shoes. I stopped doing it because I kept seeing the same people in the line with the same children, teaching them our children how to beg in the land of opportunity. In the land where you have the privilege of being who you want to be, you have the opportunity to go do what you want to do. And all you can say is, I'm poor, so I got to rob my neighbor. I got to beat up somebody. I got to take something from somebody so I can have. That narrative, we didn't grow up with that narrative. That's never been our narrative in this country. But right now we're being fed, and our children are being fed this spoon-fed. What do we say? What do you say? Get rich
Or
or die trying? Come on now.
But again, you got to remember.
Come on,
too,
Vince.
there are certain.
That's what you're competing against out here. Get rich or die trying to get rich.
Yeah.
To make some gold, some plastic, some money that don't have all it is, some currency that's backed by the United States government saying we promise to pay and I owe you. You gonna get. See, we got to go back to the whole relearning, retraining, re-educating. That's what I think this show attempts to do.
But you got to meet people where they are, and that's part of the problem. When we talk about violence, I can only speak as a subject matter expert on community violence. When I tell
Subject matter expert?
Yes, yes.
Well, can we get into that a little bit? What
Definitely.
makes you an expert, Vincent? What makes you a subject matter expert on this?
Well, besides the fact that I have been the perpetuator of violence, I've had to examine myself and what pushed me to do the things that I did, as well as all the systems in place that was designed to help me. You know, I always tell people, at 16 I was in college, at 17 I was in the penitentiary, but people are more interested in how I got to the penitentiary than how I got to college.
And you know, that sounds crazy to me because usually, you know, you drop out of school, right? Go to prison, then go to college.
Not
You went
to
to college first. That usually doesn't happen that way. Can you fill us in a little bit more?
Well, that was, again, I was young, I was immature, and I was materialistic. I'm listening to the music at the time. I'm listening to a peer group, and it was the time when crack cocaine was new. People were getting money that had never seen money before, sort of like the PPP thing, where people who never had money suddenly had money, and now they had this false sense of power or whatever.
Ego.
It was a lot to it, and it was a false sense of success. You know, for those who, my mama never had but 2 cars, and now I got 2 in the driveway right now. Like,
yeah,
my rims cost more than so much, and you know.
Yeah, the jeans, the $500 jeans.
Well, they went $500 back then.
Yeah, but
if you had $100 pair, you know, I'm understanding the inflation now.
The gear, though.
Yeah, the clothes, the females, everything. It was enticing for a person who didn't have, because despite, we can say, and I always tell people, you know, being poor and being broke is 2 different things. Poor is a mentality, broke is just a situation, you know. It means my check ain't came yet, but I'm gonna have some money. As soon as I get an opportunity or make one for myself, I'll have it. So that's being broke. I stay broke. My wife gonna keep me broke. She gonna make sure that she say don't no woman want nobody that's broke, so she ain't gotta worry about me.
Don't. Let me tell you.
That's
about
not
something.
true though. It's a whole lot of broke guys.
Don't love yourself into a false sense of security on this one, okay?
Right. But yeah, it's like we talk about money, but the truth is money is at the top, and there are so many underlying issues. For instance, we have a death sustaining mentality in our culture right now. If you look at young kids, they walk around with pictures of their deceased people, their deceased friends and family, in a little necklace with wings on there. They got long-lived T-shirts. They getting tattoos with "Rest in peace, rest in heaven," but they have "Long-live such and such who is dead," which is diametrically opposed. Death and life are diametrically opposed. So they're walking around with diametrically opposed messages on their chest.
And you know what else they're doing?
And they believe in it.
That bothers me? These makeshift memorials all over.
Everywhere.
But because they don't have
But
a
it's
voice.
bottles of liquor.
And teddy bears.
All these teddy bears, but these weren't kids.
Right.
A lot of times, and I see this, and I saw this from my job, just having to respond, a lot of the murders in Cleveland, a high percentage of them, are actually retaliatory. They're always connected in some way.
What do you mean?
I mean, this person gets killed,
just somebody
and I'm going to give you some get back for this, and I might hit the wrong person, and it's always this. I work in high schools, and I hear this kind of regularly when something happens to a kid. If they get jumped, the mother come up and say, "I'll get all y'all killed." and they make these statements. And oh, when my brother get out of jail, your brother is not even home yet, and this is this self-hatred, this is this death-sustaining, not life-affirming culture where if my brother is just coming home from doing time, why am I calling him and putting him in a situation
putting him in harm's
where
way?
either he putting his freedom at risk or his life at risk, either or it's not effective. That's not a good form of love.
But we don't have ways. We don't have conflict resolution in our community. We don't have these tools yet of how do we resolve these situations. You talk about, the night me and you met, you brought out some tools that we didn't have to resolve that situation. We were standing there like deer in the headlight. The Arabs ran in the store like, we closed. Businesses, and everybody, some people standing in the parking lot just want to be entertained. They were amused. Some people, they were just like me. We didn't know to go to our car. We're going to get, because she's doing donuts in the parking lot.
With him hanging on to the
So we are frozen in time and nobody has solutions. But then Vincent Evans steps up and says, wait a minute, not even on the clock. You weren't even on the clock that night, were you?
I probably would. I'm always on the clock.
Well, if you were, you should have been paid double, triple, because you mediated that situation, calmed that young man down, calmed that young woman down, found a peaceful way to bridge those two together, where everybody came out and was not necessarily satisfied, but out of harm's way, and they were able to peacefully resolve that situation in that moment of time. Those are the solutions we need, and it came about not with you raising, I'm calling the police, not with you waving some weapon. It was just some kind of tactics that you used, some tools that you pulled out of your tool belt that you had learned somewhere. Or maybe you just knew instinctively, but some of those tools you knew somewhere of how to de-escalate a violent situation.
Well, I think with all of the trainings, we get all of these skill sets or whatever, but at the end of the day, you said it right. A lot of it is instinctual. At the end of the day, community work is, and as long as you remember this, you can't go wrong. It's relational. You just build relationships. If this was somebody I was trying to talk to, I have to earn your trust. I have to do it just like if it's a female I like or a guy I want to do business with. I have to earn your trust. I have to tell you who I am and show you that I got your best interests at heart. We got to be both working towards something. So it actually brings us back full circle, because when you talk about restorative justice and you talk about healing, and you said something that when I said it's about empowerment through a restorative justice lens, how do we heal? But how do we get people involved in their own upliftment? And you just said it. People, when the community does not have these skills, we have to show them the skills, we have to teach them the skills, I have to get men in and say, this is what men do. When you at a store as a man, this is your job as a man to protect. This is your job to pour into the people around you. If you're so strong, what is the number one responsibility of the strong? To protect the weak. And if you see people weak, then it's your responsibility to step up if you're really strong and you protect those people. And how do you do that? I don't know. It's instinctual. You do what you feel is necessary to get everybody home safe. That's my argument. Whenever I deal with any young person and we get into this confrontational type situation, one example real quick, it was a murder. A guy's sister had got killed, and it was in this community, and he's at the crime scene with a gun. The crime scene is over here, the police is keeping him back, but it's a crowd, and everybody afraid of him. One of my coworkers showed me that day what it take, and he walked up to him and he told him, he said, man, I need you to get home tonight so that you can be there for your mama, and I need to be home tonight so I can be there for my kids. And he found that common ground, and he walked with that guy, he talked with that guy, he said, I ain't taking your gun from you, I ain't trying to get you arrested, I'm trying to get you out of here, because now you got all these 30 and 40 people over here, they scared to death. Now look what you just did, and you experienced the loss. You think their family should deserves to experience a loss? Now you arguing, they calling people, and what we gonna do here? It's not gonna deal with this. So we have to learn how to be compassionate, build these relationships, and build up our community one person at a time, rites of passage, one youth at a time. This generation, it's scary to me because I deal with them and they don't have a voice, and somehow we have to teach them how to get a voice, and we have to introduce, they got social emotional learning, we got to talk about emotional intelligence. There are so many things that we have to talk about, parental responsibilities, just responsibilities as men and women. How do we step up and show them strength? How do we lead by example? How do we pour into them? How do we show a type of love that is, I don't want to say agape because that's like the purest, but a love that's unconditional. They're saying, I love you just because you exist. I want to see you live. I want to see you happy. I want for you what I want for myself. And that's what empowerment starts with. Like I told you before, when people ask me, why do you do community work? It's not because I destroyed my community. It's not a restorative justice thing for me where I feel like I have to heal what I've broken. That ship sailed. I do the work simply because, and when I do trainings, I ask people, and at the end of my training, you only get one answer to get your certificate. Why do you do community work? Because it needs to be done, period.
And let me just say, we need some help. We don't even have a protocol. When you see violence in your community, what's the protocol? What should you do? Because the first thing you should do is pick up the phone and call the police. I mean, we don't even have a protocol for witnessing violence. We don't have a way to mediate or meditate when we've seen violence. We think we've been desensitized. We haven't.
And we allowed another mentality, that hip hop culture, stop snitching mentality to intervene.
Right.
You know, I told somebody and I asked them, do you know the difference between snitching and telling? Because my grandmother made it clear. She said, if you break in my house, I'm calling the police because I pay my taxes.
Right.
She said, that ain't snitching, that's my civic duty.
Right.
And I feel like we need to understand that. If my daughter is walking down the street and you see a car come and snatch her up, I expect you to call the police.
That's right.
I expect you to call the police.
It's okay. It's okay when it's somebody else. And that's what I'm saying. We need spaces where we can come and we can talk to each other. We can hear our young people. They have a voice too, and we should listen.
And we have to moderate it as well. Because like I said, without the emotional intelligence, it'll go. And I've set with young people. And if you don't moderate that, if you don't guide that conversation to a certain degree,
well, they need our input.
It will go somewhere bad.
Yeah,
but also, adults have to step back. I was just in a classroom and I was discussing basically cognitive biases. And nobody likes to talk politics, but the truth is that's where your critical thinking skills come in. Politics, religion, and things that we try to stay away from are the things we should address. So we were talking about politics, and I was just talking about cognitive biases and how we have to be aware that these things are happening. For instance, if you ask most people why did they vote for Kamala, if they honest, most people, not everybody, but if they honest, they'll say because she black, or because she was a female, or because of both. If you're being honest, that was a cognitive bias. So why is anybody surprised that white men voted for Trump because he was white and he was a man?
But nobody asked them why they vote for 47 white presidents.
But we know why. But we know why.
Obvious.
We know why, and that's what we got to deal with. We have to deal with facts. We got to teach our kids simply. We don't come with that one. We come with the fact that we make up 13% of the 12.9% of the population. Whites make up 63%. So even if we all went to the votes, do you really think they wouldn't have got their buses and voted too?
Well, we can sway the vote. Well, we don't.
We can. We can have an influence.
We're picking between two already chosen. They've already chosen people. There, we're just picking.
But when we're talking to children, we just want them to understand at a base level what you are up against.
Right.
Not the factors like you saying. We got the electoral college, we got gerrymandering, we have all of these different things going on. But let's start with just giving the kids the facts first. I was explaining something to somebody about the felons. You know, the biggest argument, we have a crab in a bucket mentality right here, boots on the ground, where they say, oh, why should Donald Trump be a felon? How they gonna let a felon become the president? Well, here go my argument with that. My uncles is felons. So if instead of thinking, oh, he should come down here and be like us and not be able to have a job, no, that's a crab in a bucket mentality.
Right.
The thing is, if Donald Trump, if the president of the United States can be a convicted felon, hey, we need to tell the post office, y'all need to start hiring convicted felons. We need to tell the government, y'all need to start hiring convicted felons because the president can do it, so can we.
And all the marijuana convictions should be expunged.
Well, we got a lot of fights.
Every last one of them should be expunged.
We got a lot of fights.
We got a
lot of fights.
And we're up for it. We're up for it.
We got a lot of fights.
In our last few minutes, you know, I know we're going to have an exciting show. Can you tell the listening audience, our viewing audience, what they can expect? In our last few minutes, what can they expect?
Well, a lot of cultivation of critical thinking skills. I will be introducing problems. I will be bringing in guests who will be boots on the ground, people who are trying to make, not even trying, who are making a difference, one person at a time. We will be coming with community violence reduction strategies, like you were saying, conflict resolution, mediation, arbitration, knowing the difference between these. We'll be using a lot of terms that are used and utilized against us when we talk about no more chasing the bag, no more, stacking the bag or whatever that is. Let's talk about creating generational wealth. Let's talk about revenue streams and passive income. Let's use the language of, like TD Jakes said so eloquently, the language of your next, the language of the rooms and the spaces we trying to get into. I don't want to buy a house and pay for it in cash. I want to go and have a real business deal, sign paperwork, and make sure that this is mine. I don't just want the house, I want the land. So these are things we want to discuss. Rites of passage. How do we teach young boys to become young men, responsible young men? How do we get males, to become responsible males and responsible men? How do we even define manhood for ourselves and stop allowing everybody else to define it for us? So as we move forward, basically the whole thing is about empowerment. Again, uplifting our people up from here. Because if this is the bottom and this is the base, oh my God, Trump is the president. What are we going to do now? We're going to do what we've been doing forever. Yeah, we're going to survive and we'll find a way to thrive.
That's right.
Now the goal is to find a way to thrive in a way that our communities build back up. Where now my child can come out and play and I ain't got to worry about the neighbors because I know that the neighbors will take care of my child the same way I would take care of theirs. We have to build that back into ourselves. We got to bring love back in, and it got to come from a loving place. And that's the only thing we can do, and that's the only thing we can expect is, again, the cultivation of safety, a sense of safety that allows us to now, even if you look at the hierarchy of needs, I won't even talk about that, but if you don't have that safety at the bottom, that sense of belongingness and love ain't going to come.
All right. Well, let me just say it's going to be an exciting show. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking for all the interesting and dynamic conversations and guests. And in our final few moments, is there a way that your fan club, and I know you're going to have a huge fan club, they can reach out to you? Is there some social media or an email if they want to reach out with comments or questions to you?
I got to work on that. Yeah.
All right, work on it for the next show. And
you
can reach me at Ms. V at Green Movement Glenville. We're on Facebook, greenmovement.com. And that's our website. And we'll be seeing you soon. We'll be hearing from you soon.
Regularly. Thank you. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. And Cleveland, until next time, we'll see you later. You'll catch us on YouTube. We'll be doing a little TikToking. You'll see us on a variety of social media platforms. All right? All right. Love you, Cleveland. That was it? That wasn't that hard, was it? Oh, man, that was a good show. I could have went on for an hour, but I wanted to keep it in 30 minutes. Right? Let's go back.